Hello and welcome to Volleyball State, a look at the sport of volleyball in 6 rotations and a proud part of the I-80 Club. I'm Jeff Sheldon.
And I'm Lincoln Arneal.
Hey, this week, a special bonus episode that is only available to you, our wonderful, beautiful, intelligent Volleyball State subscribers. So thank you very much for supporting the show and our volleyball community. You know, because of you, we not only get to do the content that we want, that Lincoln and I want and brainstorm about, but we get to do the content that you want, that you fill us in on and that you demand. So this helps us keep being an independent show that gets to talk about the things that you and we want. And we really value that. And we hope to make sure that the show stays that way going forward. So I was thinking about this the other day, Lincoln, like one of the best parts of having a listener supported show is like, we have to come up with more stuff to talk about. I don't know if you remember like season 1, we kind of got into the pattern of our weekly recap shows. And then the off season, it was like, oh my gosh, what do we talk about? And now we get to kind of spread our wings a little bit. And that's how we came up with things like Volleyball Late, which we got to preview this spring, our post-match show, which we're going to do after select matches this fall. And man, we're going to do a lot of those. Also, you've seen our I-80 Club Discord chats. We've had some great Q&As in there where we will pick an hour and just say, all right, we're gonna talk volleyball with you. Ask us anything. We will tell you whatever we know. And then monthly newsletters, and maybe it will be even more periodic than monthly coming up this fall, but being able to deliver some written stuff right to you, whether we're breaking down a certain topic or looking over recruits or looking over different teams. It's kind of nice, Lincoln, for me to sit down and put a byline to something and see if my fingers still work.
Do they still work? I mean,
not as well as they used to. I mean, I'm too young for arthritis, but like we're tiptoeing up to that age probably eventually. But yeah, every once in a while, like the brain talks through the hands a little bit.
Good stuff. Yeah, it's good stuff. We collaborated on one last month, kind of after Nebraska had their schedule released, went back and forth. It almost kind of a talking conversation through the written word.
Absolutely. So, that's always going to be available only to subscribers like you, or it will be available to you first. So if you know more folks that like volleyball, you want to support the show, support the community, spread the word to your other friends. Just $5 a month at patreon.com/I80 Club gets you the entire backlog library and all of the bonus stuff that we'll have coming your way for the rest of this summer on days like today. And then when we get into the fall, where season 3, just the wheel is going to churn even faster.
Yeah, they'd say we never make it, and here we are, season 3. Look at us go.
Do we have haters? Are we like prominent enough to even have haters? I don't think so.
I think our haters are largely indifferent.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably more so. So
they're more dislikers than haters.
Yeah,
and they're probably not subscribing.
But yeah, if you want to hate on us or just give us any feedback, you can follow us on social media. We have Volleyball Pod is on Twitter, Blue Sky. We got a TikTok account. We got an Instagram account. We got every single way you could want to platform on social media there. I tweet at Lincoln_VB and write for Huskers Illustrated, put on a Substack, put out some YouTube videos. It's a little bit low now, but we're gearing up. June 15th is just a few days away. It was the first day of signing period, or first day that rising juniors can be committed to a class of 2027 and coming at you here pretty quick in a few days.
And we're hoping within the next couple of weeks, Nebraska's recruiting class for 2027 is going to start to take shape. We are hoping to bring you a show where we break some of that stuff down. Lincoln and I were talking right before we started recording that July kind of looks like a messy month for us schedule wise, with work stuff and vacations and getting ready for the season to really get running in August. So we're going to try to bankroll some stuff or not bankroll, sorry, pre-record some things maybe in June that we can get to you in July. But don't worry, there's still going to be plenty of Volleyball State coming your way through the rest of the summer.
For sure. So here's what we're going to do today. Today, we're going to look an early look. I mean, we're 70, as we record this, we're 73 days out from the first match of the 2025 season. So we're going to look at national title contenders. The caveat, we're not going to talk about Nebraska today. You listen to Volleyball State. Most of you follow Husker volleyball. You're well aware Nebraska is probably one of the favorites to be in the national title convention. We're going to talk about the other schools, so you can have those knowledgeable volleyball conversations, impress everyone with your knowledge of teams other than Nebraska. So we're going to talk about we got 6 rotations. 5 of them are dedicated to single teams. We'll talk about dark horses later on. So why do we believe in these teams, and what are some reasons that these teams may fall short? I think we're talking about 8, 9, 10 teams today. There's only a final 4, so not all of them are going to make it to Kansas City. Why might some of these teams, and some team we might not talk about today, could make it in there too? So here's the teams that we're going to look at today that we've identified as the teams that should be in the national discussion here in mid-June. We're going to talk about Texas, Penn State, Kentucky, Pittsburgh, and Stanford. Those are our first 5 rotations. And in rotation 6, we're going to talk about some other dark horses that probably should have their name mentioned, that if they end up in Kansas City, we won't be caught off guard too. I mean, who's going to make a deep run like Arkansas or even Creighton from last year? Teams that really kind of have a good nucleus and some really high level players that could be in the discussion. So that's what we got lined up today. And so we're going to talk national picture here in June 2025. So
when we started when we talked about the idea for the show, and one of the goals behind it was to make people a smarter volleyball fan. I don't know if it really impresses people at parties if you know off the top of your head who the first and second choice for libero at Texas is, but maybe by the end of this show you are going to have knowledge of that, and you're going to be able to impress all of your volleyball dilettantes that run around your social circles. So let's start in rotation 1 with those Texas Longhorns. I was surprised when I was looking up Texas. I forgot that they were 20-7 last year.
Yeah,
I'm used to Texas being like 29-3, and Texas lost in the Sweet 16 last year to Creighton. Didn't even make it to the regional final. They had to go up to Happy Valley to that slaughterhouse of a regional, and they lost to Creighton in 4 in the Sweet 16. So it seems like if Texas is going to make a run to the Final Four, it's got to be a little bit of a bounce back year for them, right, Lincoln? But to bounce back, they have brought in one of the best transfers of the offseason.
Yeah. And I think that, you look at, from a former team, this will be a question mark that we talk about later too. Who is Texas? Why are we talking about Texas too? They stack recruiting class on recruiting class too, but they really supplement through the transfer portal. You look at what they've done. Logan Eggleston was a homegrown prospect. Then you had Madison Skinner the last couple of years, National Player of the Year 2 years ago. And then I think this year they brought in Torrey Stafford, an outside hitter from Pitt. And plus they brought in a bunch of other transfers as well too. But Torrey Stafford is the headliner, one of the better transfers in the transfer market era. She hit 358 as a left side pin hitter, which is just ridiculous. You expect that from your middle blockers and maybe your opposite, but 358 as an outside hitter, they're cleaning up a lot of junk, and they take care of a lot of the garbage or out of system balls too. So she brings a lot of talent to Texas for the Longhorns.
For a little more context, right? If you're picking a number that you expect a first team All-American outside hitter to put up, I might put that at like 275, and depending on, the volume of the outside hitter, they might be even lower than that. You can be a first team All-American outside if you're getting 4.5 kills a set, but you're only hitting 250 because you're taking 45 swings a match. Torrey Stafford hit 358, which is like what a good middle blocker would hit. Not even like a replacement level, but like a good middle would hit 358. And that just blows my mind. And now she's down in Austin. Kind of the other reason you have to feel good if you're Texas is the big knock on Texas traditionally is their back row play. They're not good passers. They're not good ball handlers. Well, Jarrett Elliott went out and he shored that up. Not only did they return their starting libero from last year, Emma Halter, they added one of the best liberos in the Big Ten as a transfer, Ramsey Gary from Indiana, who also I think last summer played on one of those junior national teams, maybe the under, I forget if it was the under 20 or the under
21 team.
Yeah, because she took the place of Lainey Choboy, who was working out on those teams too. So Texas has to feel like they're in really good hands on the left side, with their back row seemingly squared away with Emma Halter and Ramsey Gary. One of those two is going to earn the starting libero jersey. The other's probably gonna be a DS. But that it's not a given that Texas is going to win the SEC or make a run to the Final Four, because they lost an awful lot too. Let's start with their top 3 attackers. Maddie Skinner gone, Jenna Wennis gone, Reagan Rutherford gone. So all three of those were transfers as well, who didn't start their college careers in Austin. And we see Jared Elliott kind of, continuing to spin up the transfer machine to restock at Texas. And that does come with a little bit of a risk.
Yeah, and you look at, Texas lost a lot to the transfer portal as well, too. Jordan Bird is gone. Mariana Singletary is gone as well. Auburn Tompkinson. So they lost a lot. There's a lot high churn of players that goes on, but they have a lot of options, too. They brought in a really great recruiting class, too. Kind of the two headlines for that are Marcia Spears and Abby
Makaria, I think.
Makaria.
Makaria Spears. They call her Kari.
Kari, yes, that's right. Makaria Spears and Abby Vanderwall, I think two of the top 5 recruits, and regardless of position in the nation, both left side pin hitters too. So again, Texas just reloads. Whether it's through the portal or through high school recruiting, they find good prospects and bring them in too. So they could be in the discussion to get some playing time at that outside hitter 2 position behind Stafford.
Yeah, and there's a lot of arms that Texas has in the gym with their pin hitters. I think it's not they might have to move some players around to fill out that lineup. Abby Vanderwall is a really highly rated recruit. Kari Spears is the daughter of former NFL star Marcus Spears, yes. I believe, former LSU star. So those are newcomers, but then they've got some of their veterans on the team too. So Devin Kahahawai, who earned a starting spot through part of the season last year. She's, I believe, 6'4" and has a nice arm. And then, former Nebraska player Whitney Lowenstein, is this the year that she breaks into the starting lineup in Austin at opposite? So it wouldn't surprise me if, Stafford is penciled in at one of the left side spots, and then you have 3 or 4 players who you're making the pick between the OH2 and the opposite position.
Yeah, they got a lot of weapons out there. But I think what's hurt them last year, what made them a little bit more vulnerable, was kind of the unsettled setter position too. And they've kind of, the transfer portal figured that out too. Ellis Wendell, her freshman year, she set them to a national title. They bring in Avery Carlson from Baylor. They really kind of go back and forth. They mess around with a 6'2" at times. And never really kind of settled into that. Avery Carlson eventually started more matches later in the year too. So I think she kind of won that, but Texas hit their ceiling at the like you said, the regional semifinal. So I think Ellis Wendell looks to be in position to regain her full-time starting position role after Carlson transferred to SMU. So Ellis Wendell, I think she's a very good setter too. So hopefully she can regain the form from her freshman year and really run that offense with all those weapons.
Yeah. Well, and that was always one of the more interesting situations to keep an eye on in college volleyball last year, is you had a freshman in Ellis Wendell who set you to the national title her first year. And then you bring in basically another starting level setter from an in-state rival. And I don't know what that did, if anything, to the locker room last year. Usually coaches, if all things are equal, they're going to default to the younger player just because you're going to have more time with them. And I don't know what sort of conversations were had at the end of last season, but the result was Avery Carlson, moving on now, is playing for her 3rd college team, I think, in as many years. I think
all
she's a senior this year.
While she's at it. Yeah, all on
exactly. All on I-35 there in Texas. And so now it looks like the keys are back in Ellis Wendell's hands, and she's going to be a junior. And is she going to run this Texas attack now for the next couple of years? So if the passing is figured out, Texas is never short on talent. It's, is their ball handling going to be good? Are they going to be able to settle onto a roster? And really, the SEC gives them, I think, a little bit more time to figure that out. One thing I was reminded of this year too, Lincoln, is we get the SEC postseason tournament this year. Did you remember that?
Yeah.
They're bringing back conference tournaments.
Savannah, Georgia, SEC hub.
Mm-hmm. So Texas is the one team, I think, on our list that we're talking about today, which is not scheduled to play Nebraska in the regular season. So we're going to have to keep an eye on the Longhorns from afar, but they're going to be on TV plenty. So Texas, rotation 1. Let's move into sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like Nebraska fans like to keep an eye on Texas regardless of what's happening. That's the one team that whenever they lose, Nebraska fans rejoice. So, yep.
Mm-hmm. Let's move into rotation 2, and that is another familiar team to Husker fans, the Penn State Nittany Lions, the defending national champions. They went 35-2 last year, tied with the Huskers for first place in the Big Ten, and of course, they ended the season in Louisville, hoisting the national championship trophy after beating Nebraska in the national semifinals. So Penn State brings back a lot of talent, but then they also have their own addition that they made as well. So let's just run over real quick who's coming back for the Nittany Lions. I think it starts with sophomore setter Izzy Stark, who again, another freshman who led her team to the national championship. Seems like it never used to happen before, and now we've had 2 of the last 3 national champs. Or the last 2 national champs have been set by true freshmen. She was the national freshman of the year. Caroline Juravicius is back at the opposite position, although as we're about to talk about, she's got some competition there. And then in the back row, Jillian Grimes is a senior libero who is going to steady Penn State's back row. Their middles are back as well, Maggie Mendelson and Jordan Hopp. But I think all of the attention right now, Lincoln and Happy Valley, is going to be on the Pins, and especially the newest Nittany Lion.
Yes. I think at Penn State looked like they were going to be a very strong team, but then they hit the jackpot in the late transfer window when Kennedy Martin, I don't know if I think Penn State was on the short list too, but I think it came as a little bit of a surprise that Kennedy Martin chose to transfer to Penn State too, but she will join a loaded lineup. We'll talk about kind of the ramifications of that too. So I think that elevated Penn State from a Big Ten contender to a national title contender as well too. I mean, anytime you add, she's a 2-time All-American at Florida, really a great all-around player. I think she averaged about 6 points per set last year, or just over, or just right around 6 points per set, which is elite level. She's good too. But also not the only new pin hitter for Penn State. Outside hitter Emmy Selman from Ohio State, she will join the mix as well too. Her best match last year was against Penn State. I think it was a 5-setter, and Ohio State tried to knock off the Nittany Lions. They did not, but she had more than 20 kills in that match as well too. So she, as a freshman, so I think she has a high ceiling as a player too. But she'll also be in the mix at that pin hitter.
Mm-hmm. And the reason Penn State, has some question marks there is they lost a lot. Jess Merzick has exhausted her eligibility. She moved on. So did their other opposite hitter, Cameron Hanna, who had some big matches. Taylor Trammell in the middle. She graduated as well. So did some of their reserve players like Angelina Stark. And in the back row, Quinn Menger left, and then they had or exhausted her eligibility. And then someone who might have challenged on that outside hitter position, Alexa Markley, decided to transfer to Washington. So if you were to sit here and ask us today who are going to be the pin hitters for Penn State, I think Emmy Selman probably has one of those spots lined up on the left. Of course, Kennedy Martin on the right. But then who's that next outside position? Do they move Caroline Juravicius to the left? Is that something that she's even interested in? Or do they look at some of the players who provided depth last year to step into the starting lineup? I don't think I have the answer for that, and I don't know that Katie Schumacher-Cawley does right now either.
Yeah, and the one thing I think we talked a lot about Caroline Juravicius. Her best matches were also against Nebraska. So Nebraska fans saw the best of her. She struggled at times too. Markley came in, replaced her at opposites. There were several matches where she was struggling. So that kind of safety net is gone too. And I think she always kind of played one rotation. There's always that run rotation where you don't want to flip-flop your pin hitters, where the opposite stays at the left pin. So she has a little bit of experience there too. And you've seen Nebraska too. Krause spent her first 2 years at Nebraska playing the right side opposite hitter before switching over to the left side. So you can make that transition. But she's such a physical player too that you always felt that opposite was the perfect fit for her position wise. But this is the second time that a opposite from Florida has transferred in to take away what could have been a starting spot for her. So I still think Caroline Juravicius has the highest ceiling of anyone on their roster. Besides, Selman and Martin, I think the number one, number two, but I think outside that group, you want to put your most talented players on the court. So I think that they'll find a way to get Juravicius on the court that way.
A couple freshmen too to keep an eye on for Penn State who could also maybe challenge at those pin hitting positions. Marin Collins is a freshman outside hitter, and Alexis Ewing, another freshman outside hitter. Both those players really nice size, 6'3" and 6'4". So watch for them to fight that out this fall. The player, honestly, I really want to keep an eye on, right, is Emmy Selman.
Yeah.
Selman had a really great match last year as a freshman for Ohio State when they played Penn State. And then if you take that away, the numbers don't necessarily look that impressive, right? It looked very much like a freshman starting her first season in the Big Ten, in the nation's toughest volleyball conference. So does she take a step forward after transferring to Penn State? I think Penn State obviously believes that she can if they recruited her to come there as a transfer. But that has remained to be seen. So is it going to turn into the Kennedy Martin show and everyone else, or is there going to be some semblance of balance? I think it helps that Izzy Stark is one of the best setters in the country. Really impressive last year, but it is not going to be as easy as like throw the ball up and the ball's going down.
Yeah. The other thing I worry about Penn State, or you worry about them, is just the getting together as a cohesive unit too. I mean, you mentioned all those players that left, like Maruzic, Hanna, Trammell. I think those three at least who were kind of the headliners on the national championship team were all transfers. You look at who they brought in: Martin, Jurevicius, Mendelson, Jordan Hops, also a transfer too. So they really have utilized the transfer portal. So Jeff, I'll ask you this question. I mean, why does Kelly Sheffield at Wisconsin and Jared Elliott at Texas, I mean, they take a lot of heat for loading up on transfers and the transfer portal. But it seems like Katie Schumacher-Cauley kind of flies under the radar. Do you have theories for that?
Well, I think it's a couple things. And I'd throw Nebraska in there too. John Cook would take he would get side-eyed by a lot of teams for some of his transfer additions. And I think part of it is the nature of college sports now, where transfers are just becoming more of a fact. I think Jared Elliott and Kelly Sheffield maybe were bringing in transfers when it was just less widespread. And then I do think, those coaches have been around long enough that they have sort of, become villains to to fan bases of other teams. Kelly Sheffield and Jared Elliott, just in the way that other fan bases like to bag on John Cook. Katie Schumacher-Cauley just hasn't been around long enough to become the bad guy. And I do think, there's some sympathy there because of the health challenges that she was going through last year. But, if Penn State just continues to kind of base their recruiting classes around transfers, they're going to start to come under scrutiny for that as well. And frankly, it doesn't matter to me. Like, acquire the talent however you feel like you need to. I think is good for the rivalries, are good for the sport. Villains are good for the sport. But I don't like hypocrisy. So if you're going to bag on, Nebraska or Wisconsin or Texas for, going and playing the transfer game, let's not forget the other schools that do that too.
Yeah. Well, SMU just embrace the villain role and live by the portal, die by the portal. So
wear the black hat. It's fine.
That's Penn State. I think they'll also be, challenging Nebraska for the Big Ten title too. But let's move on to rotation 3. Our next team in the queue is Kentucky, who Nebraska will see in Nashville as part of the Broad Street Party. What's it called?
Broadway Block Party.
Block Party. I knew this was a little bit of alliteration in there too. Kentucky had, they had a typical Kentucky season, as has been the case the last couple of years. Struggle in the offseason, find their rhythm, and then just run through the SEC. They went 14-2 in the SEC. Which means that I think they went, was it 9 and they were 9-6, and
they were under 500 at one point early last season.
Yeah, 9-6 also includes the 3 wins they had, so they were right around 500 in the non-con. And they just kind of they figure things out in the non-conference early in August, September, and then make a run to the SEC. That's what they did again last year too. But they lose a couple big players as well too. I start off with setter again, Emma Grome, who was the all-time Kentucky assist leader. Who they've had. Was it who was they had a setter of the player of the year back in 2000? What was her name?
Madison Lilly.
Madison Lilly. Yes, thank you. Yeah, she was a setter. Ran Kentucky to.
She's an assistant coach there now.
Yeah. So now Emma Grome passed her on the all-time assist leader ranks as well too. And then to me, the other big loss they have was Eleanor Bevan, who was the libero, really provided that stability in the back row too. They lost a couple outside hitters, Megan Wilson, Aaron Lamb, who were second, third attackers on the team as well too. So they lost a little bit, but again, transfer portal came in and kind of they found their answer just a little bit to the north of their campus. From Purdue, they get Eva Hudson, who was a all Big Ten caliber player, brought along her teammate Lizzie Carr, who I think her brother plays for the Kentucky basketball team, I believe. So bringing in the family back home to Lexington. So they got a couple other transfers too. But Hudson, I think, is the real big star of the transfer class. It really is why we're talking about them too, because I think they were a really good team, but bringing in a player of the caliber of Hudson's level elevates them.
Yeah. Hudson was one of the better, I mean, I don't even know if you can call her unsung outside hitters in the Big Ten last year. Like she is a true talent, and any team in the country would be excited to have her. And now Craig Skinner gets to put her next to Brooklyn DeLay, who is also one of the best outside hitters in the country, who is going into her junior year. So Kentucky gets to roll out an outside hitter duo of Eva Hudson and Brooklyn DeLay, who was a National Player of the Year finalist last year, hit almost 300 as a left side, averaged 4.9 kills a set. So like if you're going to believe in Kentucky, you're believing in Hudson and DeLay being one of the best outside hitter duos in the country. I think the big questions they have, right? Anytime you lose your ball handling battery, your libero and setter both in the same year, you worry a little bit. And so who's going to set for Kentucky? Is it going to be Cassie O'Brien, the transfer from, the freshman, or is it going to be redshirt sophomore Ava Safara, who hasn't really played yet? She was injured, I believe, in the past, or apologize, I could be thinking of another player, but this is her third year in the program and she hasn't really played yet. So Kentucky has questions at setter, but if they're able to figure that out, they've got the front row to punish anyone.
Yeah, and I think that starts at the back row too. We talked about Bevan has gone as well too. They brought in a transfer from Marquette, Molly Berzowitz.
Berezowitz, maybe.
Berezowitz, from Marquette. She brought the libero in there, so she may be kind of hopefully their back row passing a little bit to get to the setter to help kind of start the flow of it. So, but I've seen with DeLay and Hudson too. I mean, it doesn't take a perfect set to get them to get kills. So, but you want to get them better sets so they can hit at a higher rate as well too.
And Nebraska is going to see Kentucky very early on. That's the second match of the season for Nebraska. The fourth match of the season. It's Kentucky's second match because they're starting the season at the Broadway block party. But once again, Craig Skinner has a super tough early season schedule. 3 of the first 5 matches that Kentucky has this fall are against Nebraska, Penn State, and Pitt. So there you go.
Good luck.
Welcome to the 2025 season, Craig Skinner. Hopefully your new setter is able to figure things out by then. But, this is kind of Kentucky's MO. They are not afraid to schedule early. They're not afraid to take some L's in the non-conference season because they know they're just battle testing themselves for a run in the fall. And the last couple of years, we've hit late September, October, and you're like, man, what's wrong with Kentucky? They're, 9-7, and then they run off 14 straight wins in the SEC. So, if they can even improve on a couple of those wins, right? If they get a scalp from Nebraska, if they're able to beat Pitt or Penn State, that puts them in line for a national seed come December. And nobody wants to go to Lexington and try to have to beat Kentucky once they've finally got in a rhythm and got their feet under them.
Yeah, and they're also going to be, those matches are all away from Lexington too. They're playing Nebraska and Nashville. They're going to Penn State. They'll also get a nice little warm-up match against New Hampshire. And then they're playing Pittsburgh as part of the SEC ACC Challenge. They're playing Pittsburgh as kind of one of the marquee matches of that. They'll play down in Fort Worth, Texas as well too. And then I think we mentioned this too, but they also will play SMU in mid-September, September 13th. That's going to be their first home match of the year. So not an easy start to the year for Kentucky.
Plus the SEC then rolls around and they've got to play Florida and Texas A&M and Missouri.
They got
Louisville. Yeah. Well, Louisville is another non-conference matchup, but we talk about how tough of schedule Nebraska is going to have this year. Kentucky's right up there too with probably what's going to be a top 5, maybe top 10 schedule in the country.
Yep.
So that is rotation 3, the Kentucky Wildcats. Let's move on to rotation 4, and one of the opponents of Kentucky that we just mentioned a little while ago, the Pittsburgh Panthers, looking for if Pitt made the Final Four this year, would this be the 5th year in a row that Dan Fisher has taken them to the Final Four? So this is going to be Nebraska's season opening opponent. Circle the calendars, August 22nd at Pinnacle Bank Arena on the AVCA First Serve Showcase. Lincoln for sure will be there. I might be there. I don't know. We'll probably do a volleyball late after that match for our subscribers, so be sure to check that out. Pitt last year, a ho-hum season for them. They went 33-2. They went 19-1 in the ACC and won the ACC, and everyone kind of thought that we were going to get a Pitt-Nebraska rematch for the national championship after they met in the Final Four the year before, and Louisville spoiled that by upsetting Pitt down in Louisville. But Pittsburgh lost one of their best players to Torrey Stafford to Texas. Also lost their setter, Rachel Fairbanks, who graduated and is now part of kind of the Team USA program. They lost their other outside hitter, Valeria Vasquez Gomez. Kat Flood's another player they lost off that team, as well as their starting libero, Emmy Klika. But when you bring back, even if you bring back one returner, the one returner that Pitt is bringing back is National Player of the Year, opposite hitter Olivia Babcock, and as long as you have her, you've got a puncher's chance.
Yeah, she was electric to watch last year too. I mean, she playing opposite. She was hitting front row, back row, averaged just shy of 6.
She could hit from the front row of the stands and probably hit 300.
Oh, she hit 323. I mean, Pitt's offense last year was ridiculous. We talked about a little bit earlier about what Stafford hit too, but Olivia Babcock hit 323. And also, I mean, they returned Olivia Babcock too, but they also returned both their middles, who were 2 of the better middles too. I mean, Bree Kelly, she was just under 2 kills per set, hit 497. Ryla Jones had 1.1 kills per set, 393. Their offense was ridiculous. And I think maybe this is where Rachel Fairbanks didn't get enough credit for the work that she did. I mean, Olivia Babcock is a stud, and she had a lot of great players to set. But Rachel Fairbanks maybe didn't get enough credit for what she was doing to make that offensive hum. And Olivia Babcock deserved the National Player of the Year, and she'll be back too. And I think, like I said, if you want to, why are we talking about Pittsburgh right here? Olivia Babcock is the reason why you feel optimistic about their chances this year.
Pittsburgh themselves brought in some transfers to try to fill some of those holes, most notably at setter. They went to Illinois and got Brooke Mosher from Illinois. And this is one of the big question marks in my mind on running this Pitt offense, because, Rachel Fairbanks, when we look back on it now, you're right, Lincoln, was, I would say, probably a little undervalued. She was a multi-year starter. I think she ran a 6.2 with them for their first year, but then took over the job herself the last couple years. And Illinois did not exactly light it up with Brooke Mosher running the offense last season. They hit 230, and I don't ever remember thinking like, oh wow, this is the next coming of Jordan Poulter, in Champaign. And so, I'm probably not giving her enough credit, but that's a tall order to step into the starting lineup of a conference favorite and a Final Four favorite and meet those expectations. So that to me is the biggest question mark that Pitt has going into the season.
You look at the path that she followed too. I mean, it's kind of similar to Rachel Fairbanks. She came in as a 6'2", or Fairbanks would stay in and be an attacker, where Brooke Mosher spent her first year at Illinois as an outside hitter before going back to her recruited position as a setter her sophomore year. So maybe this is what Dan Fisher works his miracles. He sees the talent. I mean, they went after her fairly early in the portal too. So maybe there's something that he sees that he likes from her. And she's also a very aggressive attacker who won't be afraid to swing away at the net.
That's right. We'll see how she sets those middles, because Bree Kelly and Ryla Jones are both, around 400. Kelly was close to 500 last year in attack percentage. The other question I have about Pitt, right, is can they pass? Is their back row going to be a strength, or at least enough of a not weakness for them to succeed? They brought in a transfer at libero from Florida State, Emery Dupes. She was not, I would say, a star libero for Florida State. Her best year was probably her freshman year a couple years ago, but then she was injured and missed a season. if she doesn't win the starting job, you could see former Lincoln East Spartan Mallory Meyer get some time at libero for Pittsburgh, and that'll be a fun homecoming for her when the Panthers, come to Lincoln in late August. So, newcomers at the ball handling battery for Pitt, and they're hoping they can balance it out with, again, what should be one of the best offensive attacks in the country.
Yeah, I think you think Moshe is kind of bridging the gap too. They have one of the top 2026 setters. I think the top Isabella Hoppy coming into. So it's they didn't want to invest a lot into a multi-year setter, so Moshe will probably bridge the gap too. But you can't waste years with Olivia Babcock and the offense they have. I mean, every year is a good chance for them to make the Final Four. And they'll give it a run back, and you get to see them in Lincoln for a couple matches to start the year too.
Well, we know like SMU, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, like makes their presence known in the transfer portal. Maybe let's just put it that way. But, would Pittsburgh have been a nice destination for a player that's nearing the end of their college eligibility, like Avery Carlson, who I think is going into her final year of eligibility right now? Do you want someone who has played in big matches like that, running your ship at Pittsburgh? And I don't know who they approached or what their strategy was, but yeah, I'm surprised if they've got a stud 2026 setter coming in, that maybe they didn't look for someone on the more veteran end of the setter spectrum.
Yeah. So we'll get to see the Panthers early on in the year two. Another team that we will get to see early is our rotation 5, the Stanford Cardinal. They will be Nebraska's second match. They play August 24th. At Pinnacle Bank Arena as part of the first serve showcase. The Stanford, I mean, they feel like they feel like they're playing a different league than everyone else too. They're very minimal in the transfer portal. A lot of players don't leave, but also they don't get a lot as well too. They'll get a graduate transfer here and there, but they've kind of kept up the last few years too. They made the regional finals last year. They went 28-5. 17-3 in the ACC, which still feels weird to say, and we'll feel weird in perpetuity. But really, they kind of have settled into a role of this is who they are. They're a good offense. They attack well. They're serve aggressively. They'll miss a lot of serves, but they get a lot of high level prep prospects, but who are still attracted by that Stanford education, I think, and also the legacy of the Stanford volleyball program too. So they still get return a lot. The one player that we'll mention right now that they're missing, I think, is the biggest question mark for them, is they lost Cami Miner at one of the better setters in the nation. I think she was a first team All-American. Really kind of was the motor behind that, and also Sammy Francis was their best middle blocker as well too. But they returned almost everyone else from their roster.
Well, and also in the back row, they lost Elena Ogilvie, who was a very fine libero that they had. So Stanford's another team that has to replace its ball handling battery, and you cannot overstate the loss of Cami Miner, who was one of the best setters in the country, and I think is, if given the opportunity, is going to have a chance to compete, maybe even for the Olympic roster in a couple years. Is not, I think, currently part of the Volleyball Nations League roster, but who knows what it'll look like for Worlds. And she's got a really bright professional and international career in front of her. Coming back for Stanford this year, some familiar names because they played Nebraska the last couple years. Outside hitter Elia Rubin is back again. Averaged 4 kills a set last year, is a 6 rotation player, averaged 2.5 digs, just a really solid all-around player, and hit 283, which is a really good mark for an outside. They bring back their other starting outside, Ipar Kurt from Turkey, is going to be in her second year starting, averaged 3.2 kills last year, and hit almost 300. And then Jordan Harvey, the opposite, is back as well. She had 2.7 kills a set. So, if Stanford is able to figure out the ball handling, and, I don't think they're going to change their serving philosophy because the risk reward seems to work out for them. They've decided it's going to be about which newcomers are going to step up and be able to make a difference in that lineup. And it probably starts at the setter position, where Logan Parks, a top 10 national recruit, is going to come in and try to win that job as a freshman. Stanford always recruits really well. They've got another top 15 recruit, and at the outside position, Casey DeMaria, and middle blocker, they've got a couple top 50 recruits as well. So, Stanford, this is where Stanford, the school, kind of pulls in tension with Stanford, the athletic program, because one, just my opinion, all sports at Stanford, being the ACC is a disaster. Like,
Oh, yeah.
culturally, they have nothing in common with the ACC. The travel is really hard. And, you take these programs that you're used to playing for 100 years, like UCLA and USC and Washington, like schools that your alumni feel really invested in playing. And you're like, hey, meet your new rivals, Florida State. Like, it's just so hard for those teams to get up for that, especially a Stanford program that doesn't exactly draw that well historically anyway. So yeah, I think, Stanford's got struggles there, but then also Lincoln, like, can a power survive as a power in college volleyball these days if they're not going to accept transfers?
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, they have accepted a couple, but I think those were the exceptions when players had those fifth year and they were starting a graduate program. They would get into the graduate school at Stanford, but I mean, Stanford didn't accept any transfers this year, but they also didn't lose anybody to the transfer portal as well too. So it's a difficult task to do, and Stanford is really putting that to the test too. But again, you listed off, they have 4 top 50-ish recruits. High school players still want to go to Stanford, so they've proven that they're trying to live by that model. And I don't know, it's, if anybody can do it, you have to be an elite academic institution. And Stanford is testing that theory, and we'll see how it shakes out.
I should have mentioned when we were talking about the setters for Stanford, Logan Parks, the freshman, is going to come in and try to win the job. They do have a highly ranked recruit too in sophomore Taylor Yu, who will have her chance to try to win that job. I can't remember the last time Stanford ran a 6-2, but that maybe could be on the table if they feel they have enough arms. Also, Stanford traditionally is one of the best blocking teams in the country, but they lose Sammy Francis this year. And so, we don't know what Stanford's block is going to look like. Are they going to be able to send balls back to the shoe tops?
Yeah, I felt like that was one of the more underwhelming parts of their game last year too. I think they averaged just 2.32 blocks per set, and almost half of those came from Sammy Francis was involved in too. So they need to find some answers. Lizzie Andrew is one of the returning middle blockers too, and you got 2 of those freshmen you mentioned that are coming in as well too. And then also, who's going to take the place of Ogilvy? Anna Pringle is kind of a defensive specialist last year as well too. So it's a lot of mess, but it goes back to, I mean, you mentioned their serving. I think they had 1 ace for every 2 errors last year too. But I think that number is always slightly, Kevin Hambley is willing to live with that because they try to serve aggressively. They're not just serving over lollipops. They're not serving to get in. They will take rips and really go high. So, I mean, they had, I mean, how many aces? They had 191 aces to 381, which you look at what their opponents did. Their opponents, I mean, Stanford had 381 service errors. Their opponents had 300, but they more than doubled up the number of aces that their opponents had. So, I mean, yes, there's that risk reward, and Kevin Hambley's proven that he's more than willing to live with that risk.
I meant to bring this up when we were talking about them, but do you know who actually committed more service errors per set than Stanford did last year? Was Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
Kentucky's another team that likes to put it on the line from the service line. And I think sort of the analytical part of volleyball might be changing a little bit, where if you go back and, under side out scoring, right, you had to have the serve to score. And so the serve was very precious. You could not give away your side out by serving out. And so these matches from the 90s and early 2000s, just everyone's a lollipop and serves over. And now you're seeing it much more aggressive and much more strategic, trying to get teams out of system because it's a race to 25. And if you squeeze out a couple more points there, like you have a better chance of winning the set. So I see why they do it, but then, you can serve yourself right out of a match as well, which it seems like a lot of Nebraska's opponents were doing last year.
Yeah, that's a good chance too. So Stanford is kind of our 5th team that we think has a good chance to make the Final Four. We've talked about five teams already. One of them definitely is not going to make it just because we have pure numbers, and if we're not even talking about Nebraska as well too. So I think that, and we've kind of, if I had to pick a list, that's kind of the order I would power rank them as well too. You start with Texas, Penn State is going to, now that they have Kennedy Martin. And you go down the list from there too, with Kentucky being kind of if I had to pick a Final Four, it'd be those 3 in Nebraska at this point too. But Pittsburgh's proven that they have the experience to get there too. And Stanford, I think it all depends. For a lot of these teams, it's amazing how many of these teams are replacing setters as well too, and it's all going to come down to that position.
Yeah, we had a really great class of setters in college volleyball leave, and I'll be excited to see where those players are playing, or if one of them is on the Olympic roster in 2028. And I think because of that, because a great crop of players left, the perception about the season is that we could have a lot of parity this year. Obviously, I think Nebraska is considered one of the favorites to make the Final Four, if not the favorite going into the season to be the national champ. But we just talked about 4 other teams that have some pluses, have some minuses, and we're going to hit on a couple more here too. That it wouldn't shock me at all if any of these teams also made a run to the Final Four in December. Yeah. So let's go to rotation 6 and start with our dark horse candidates. It feels really dumb to me when I say that term out loud, and then you follow it up with Wisconsin, who has been one of the most prominent and consistent teams in the country over the last 10 years. But Wisconsin is losing Anna Smrek. They're losing former National Player of the Year Sarah Franklin, who's now on Team USA in the Volleyball Nations League, and really one of the few bright spots on that team.
Yeah. Julia Orzel's also gone too. Yeah.
Julia Orzel's gone. They lost one of their liberos, transferred out. And
all 3 of them transferred out.
Yeah. Not just one, a handful.
C. Crawford's gone.
Of liberos has left Madison. And so Kelly Sheffield has to go out and find some replacements for that. And his transfer class is headlined by Mimi Collier, the great Oregon outside hitter who we've seen for the last couple years. She's going to be a junior, I believe, and have a couple seasons of eligibility in Madison. But it's not like Wisconsin went out and grabbed like 4 transfer pin hitters. In fact, I think that they were in the running for Kennedy Martin too at opposite once Grace Lopez, their transfer from Miami, went down, unfortunately, with an injury in the spring. And so I think Wisconsin probably goes into the season with a few more question marks than they normally have.
Mimi Collier will be a senior, as Nebraska fans will remember her freshman year in 2022, and she helped knock out Nebraska in the regional semifinal. So she will be a senior, but she gets one last run through it as well, too.
Absolutely.
I think the other thing that they really bring back is Carter Booth. I mean, she's been one of the better middle blockers for them the last couple of years. She started her career at Minnesota before joining up with the Badgers. And she's a very physical presence, very big blocker. She's 6'7", but they need her to be more offensive and just kind of. There'll be times. I mean, Nebraska swept Wisconsin all three matches. Those would be times like you forget that she was on the court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one thing Wisconsin has done before, like they go in with kind of a vacancy at opposite hitter. Kelly Sheffield has run sort of a 3 middle offense before, where one of those middles kind of doubles as an out as a
Devin Robinson player who's also gone.
Yeah, Devin Robinson who's gone. Maybe Booth slides in there, but they're going to have some options. I also was kind of looking for Wisconsin to maybe look in the international pool of players to fill out their roster, like Nebraska added Virginia Adriano. I'm kind of surprised Wisconsin didn't do that, but it looks like their roster is finalized now. So, Charlie Fearbringer is going to be in her second year as the setter, and if she can take a step forward. But yeah, if you were going to pick a team in the Big Ten to maybe take a step back from where they've been the last couple of years, Wisconsin is probably on your list to take a little step back.
Right behind Purdue. Sorry, Purdue, stray. So I think Wisconsin's also on the list too. Texas A&M, I will put on the list as well too. Nebraska fans got to see them. They played in the Lincoln Regional. Logan Lednicki I think she went under the radar for a good part of the year too. Really came on. She was very key when the Aggies upset Texas. And she's also playing for VNL, the national team this summer too. So you get a chance to see her perform at that national level too. Then I think another part, Ifena Kos Okpala.
Ifena Kos Okpala.
Okpala, there you go, Okpala. I think she is just an athletic freak at middle blocker too, and really wreaks havoc at the net. So she's making really good progress. Jamie Morrison also is in his third year at Texas A&M, really building a solid program. And they also returned their setter and Maddie Walk, who we've talked about. All these teams have question marks. Who's going to run the offense? I think Texas A&M knows their identity. It's Lednicky's going to lead them from the opposite side, and they'll be a tough defensive team and just really try to out-athlete you a lot.
Yeah, Lednicki is really, really good. She has the potential to be a first-team All-American this fall.
I think National Player of the Year as well, too.
National Player of the Year potential as well.
Yeah.
Man, like there's some really good opposites in college this year with, Kennedy Martin and Logan Lednicki and Olivia Babcock, right? The reigning National Player of the Year. This could be the year of the opposite hitter. Let's keep it in Texas right now. We have mentioned this program a couple times already, but let's dig into them a little bit. SMU, right? The Mustangs really put the nation on notice last year when they beat Nebraska down in the Moody Coliseum. Was it the Moody Coliseum?
No, Texas that's Austin, isn't it?
Okay. I thought there was another Moody thing at SMU. Whatever. I'm going to try to stop showing off. The home arena for SMU volleyball where they beat Nebraska.
It is the Moody Coliseum. Good on you.
There we go. But SMU has brought in a boatload of transfers again as well, including one that I think, maybe she flies under the radar because it wasn't a Power 4 school that she came from. But Malaya Jones, their opposite from Colorado State, put up some amazing numbers last year. And I know that there was some talk, among Nebraska circles of not on like within the program, but just Nebraska fans we talked to who had her circled as maybe a potential transfer when Nebraska was looking for an opposite and ended up bringing in Allie Check from Baylor.
National Player of the Year, so she's really good.
Absolutely. Jaden Livings is an outside hitter that's also transferred into SMU, and Favor Onyewu, both from USC. So you got a couple players making the transition from the Pac-12 down to Fort Worth. And we mentioned her before, but Avery Carlson is making another stop within Texas. Brings some great experience to SMU, is probably going to be the starting setter there. And then they add another pin hitter from within the SEC, Madison Shear from Auburn. So, SMU has made, no bones about it. They're not shy. Like they are here to play in the transfer market. And they have, I think it was a little bit of a surprise last year, right? I think they had like 8 new players last year, but they were all very experienced. They were experienced at their previous programs. And so, let's keep an eye on SMU again this year.
Yeah, that's why they were able to load up with so many transfers this year, is because they had 8 or 9 transfers. Not all of them came in last year, but they built up. They were all transfers that were all seniors last year as well, too. So they had a very experienced class. Also, they bring in Jordan Schilling, a libero from High Point, who is the Big South libero of the year. So again, they basically brought in a brand new starting lineup from the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. So we've named two outside hitters, a middle blocker, a setter, and an opposite. So they almost have a complete starting lineup just from the portal.
Well, remember, not only did they beat Nebraska last year, I think they were the only ACC team to beat Pitt.
Yeah, they beat Pitt.
So their coaching staff knows how to take a group of transfers and mold them into a pretty functional unit. A couple other teams on our list. We can't forget Danny Busboom Kelly's former team and now current Dan Meskey coach team, Louisville. Louisville lost a lot last year, including I believe their libero and
Elena Scott and Anna
DeBeer on the outside, and their middle transferred to PK Kong
is
transferred to UCLA. So Louisville lost a lot, but like that's a program that has continuity, even though they just lost their head coach. Like the assistants are still around there. The players are familiar with the current coaching staff. And I expect them to not take a huge step back.
Yeah, too. And I think you look at the Big Ten, who's going to be contenders there too. I think it starts with Nebraska, Penn State, Wisconsin too, but kind of in that next group we'll kind of mention right here, Minnesota and UCLA too. Keegan Cook's kind of really taken over, and really this is his program now at Minnesota. He took over from Hugh McCutcheon. These are his players, and I think he's really kind of built a lot of players up as well too. I think they haven't been that active a lot, but their potential. They got a couple freshmen that are coming in as well too. The Swenson sisters,
yes,
who are really highly touted freshman prospects as well too.
Yes, so Swenson is her name.
Yes, they're going to be really good. And then I think Julia Hansen, I think, is one of a really solid outside hitter for them too.
Julia Hansen and McKenna Wooker on the outside. Yeah. So Minnesota has some has a lot of experience coming back if they can figure out the setting position. Also, Jordan Taylor in the middle is a freshman who's 6'5", who I think they're really excited about. And Lourdes Myers, didn't she transfer in from Purdue?
Yeah, again, Purdue. Brutalized by the transfer portal, especially for a non-coaching change school.
I remember Minnesota was one of the teams that John Cook pointed out as a potential Big Ten dark horse in one of the recent interviews he did. And another team who really loaded up in the transfer portal is UCLA. I know I feel like I talk about UCLA a lot because I expect them to be better than they traditionally have been. They've got a transfer setter from Long Beach that's coming in who I think is going to run their offense in Zayna Meyer. They got Mariana Singletary, a middle blocker from Texas. And then one of the players that impressed me the most last year, who I was not familiar with before watching them play, was Sheridan Leverett, the outside hitter. I don't know if she was first team All Big Ten, but she made one of the All Big Ten rosters. She is a dynamic outside hitter and is one of those players that can go off for 20 kills on any given night. Yeah,
they also added Maggie Lee, who was kind of she was one of the better outside hitters for what was the Pac-12 a couple years ago in the ACC, but she's a good outside hitter who transferred in from Cal as well too. So Alfie Reft, again, also in his third year, finally figuring out his program, getting some talent in there too. I expect them to be the top 5, fighting for the top 5 in the Big Ten conference.
Mm-hmm. And we've got a note in here, like if we had done this a couple months ago, right, done a way too early look, like Florida would have been in this list too. I think I've still got some questions about Florida. Absorbing the loss of Kennedy Martin is going to be really huge, but they've got a really excellent setter in Stuckey. Gosh, why can't I remember her first name? I apologize, Ms. Stuckey. Alexis Stuckey is a really good setter from Florida. And if they can kind of like rally around the flag, they've got a new coach, right? Ryan Tice comes in from Marquette after Mary Wise retired after 30-ish seasons there. I feel like there's too many question marks for me to put Florida on this list. But if they make the Final Four in December, I'll come right back here and deny that I ever said that, and I'll take credit for mentioning them on this show.
I think the other part too is, in April they had a Kennedy Martin. They also had Flor Marie Heredia Colon, who transferred to Florida, but then went back in the portal. Shortly was committed to Kansas, but now is back at home where it all started in Miami as well too. So, their attacking core really kind of took a hit with what they had in April to what they will start the 2025 season with.
That's right. So there you go. Our way too early look at Final Four contenders for the year of 2025. Who is going to make the trip down to Kansas City for the Final Four in December? We don't know. That's what the season's for. That's what makes it so much fun. And we're going to be with you all through the summer and then weekly during the season. You can follow us on social media at Volleyball Pod. Find us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Volleyball Pod. You can email us your thoughts, show ideas, guest ideas. We've got some exciting guests coming up later this summer that we're going to try to get. You can email us at volleyballstate@gmail.com. You can also find me individually on Twitter and Blue Sky at by Jeff Sheldon and Lincoln. Where can the folks find you and all the great stuff you put out?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Threads. I'm on Blue Sky, Lincoln_VB, maybe Lincoln A_VB, Lincoln VB, whatever. I just search for Lincoln Arneal. There's only one of me out there. We'll get at it. We got lots of content coming your way too. So hopefully you enjoyed today's special subscribers only bonus episode. We got more coming your way, but thank you for listening and thank you for subscribing and thank you for living in the Volleyball State.